So I think we can move on to the next the discussion. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So basically, just I get the chance also to remember that the posters will be evaluated through kind of voting procedure by the PIs and the postdocs, and the winner will be proclaimed at the end of the discussion, so that we can hear to the questions of everyone and the answers when possible. So if there are any questions for the previous session and the poster session, so jump forward, please.
I as a moderator, I think will be nice is reasonable. I can start my own question first. So just seize the opportunity. So actually I'm very interested in these two papers. One is presented by this Black Resin, and the other is by this recycling of the waste product. I just wondering in both talk you also mentioned, I mean, both talk I think about is there any ritual aspect, for example, using this black resin as a layers of this coffin, because you mentioned that several times, but I don't really know what's kind of ritual purpose for that. And the second of all, I think is also applied to the waste, the recycling or the reuse of the waste product in the pit. Is that possible? Is some kind of ritual purposes of ritual reusing these artifact because they have some magic power or to represent a way to present a way to do some kind of activity? So it's not usually only practical. It could be some ritual or religious meaning behind using all these waste products. Is that clear for both of you? Thank you.
Should I start?
Yes, please.
All right. That's an interesting question, because obviously the way they treated their waste is not just practical. I can't say anything about the artifacts in themselves, but the whole process of filling those pits seems to be a little more than just practical, because I have two instances where in the settlement they completely erased the former settlement structure. At first they cut off part of the soil, including a former settlement that must have been there, and that is then erased before they start with the first archaeological layer. And then after the AH2 layer, where they dug all those big pits, they completely fill in those pits and then overlay it with the AH3 layer, with those pebbles that again erases the structure of the settlement that existed before that. And they use those middens to fill in those pits sometimes just before they add this AH3 layer. So it's kind of part of erasing the entire settlement structure. So I think that this waste and this filling of the pit in themselves was kind of a ritualistic practice. But of course, it is obviously possible that those middens and parts of those shards have been used before in some kind of ritual practice that has not necessarily left a trace.
Myself. So thank you. So how about these? The next, the same question for this black resin, because I'm interested about the story behind using this black resin in the New Kingdom Egyptian cemetery. So do you have any can you explain more about this?
Yes, black resin was a resinous material used in ancient Egypt. It was this type of wooden artifact doesn't have attention to many researchers because it is difficult to make conservation to it. We have to study the deterioration phenomena and another aspects of deterioration to know how to make conservation of this type of these artifacts according to the material used. We can use the black resin on wooden support or black resin with ground layer. We can use this best chemical material in chemical cleaning and conservation, because if restoration or restore or conservator use the chemical cleaning acetone or alcohol, it was case the fade on black resin layer. Alcohol can used in pigment or wooden support, but in black resin had a different type. Also, we choose the best conservation material. We can make experimental study by another devices like gloss meter, or Optimatch. We can use this to choose the best conservation material. Conservator must know the deterioration phenomena or how to case deterioration to these wooden artifacts. Some of these wooden artifacts on my display, it was in exhibition on the Egyptian Museum, because it is the ancient Egyptian or funerary furniture covered with black resin layer. It was complicated, very complicated in analysis, in conservation, in storage, and also it they had a special case in funerary furniture of ancient Egyptian. Okay.
So yeah, thank you for your explanation. But actually, my question is, because you mentioned 2 times about there is a ritual purpose, religious purposes using the black resin, and also later on you also mentioned people destroy it on purpose due to some kind of religious belief. So I just wondering, could you explain what kind of religious belief they have? They use black resin, or also why do they destroy them afterward?
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the
black
real question.
resin.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you. Black resin was used for religious purposes because ancient Egyptian used dark color, is cased by dark color. It is wait a second, I will show you something. Black resin, the black color of ancient Egyptian was the color of darkness and the water of the first ocean. It was take off against all divine figure. It also represents the opposite idea and power and rebellion and harmony. Ancient Egyptian had the language of the color and used the darker tone as a sign of sadness. Black resin represented death and the afterlife for ancient Egyptian. It had a special physiology, especially for ancient Egyptian, because it expressed immorality and resurrection in funerary furniture. But in human damage in the past is caused like a revolution. When the revolution or people, another era after this, black resin was found in New Kingdom. After New Kingdom, human damage. They found a human damage. You can make a scratch in the face or destroy the monument. It happened also in ancient Egypt and in the modern society or modern age now. A revolution, like a revolution.
All right. Okay, I understand that the revolution, the people. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was for religious purposes in ancient Egyptian because black resin was very expensive. It was found in New Kingdom and is in the black resin composite is mastic resin and binance and beeswax and bitumen. Bitumen was found in cradle oil. Ancient Egyptian used it. This compound of this material had antifungal and antibacterial and insect repellent material in the black resin. Ancient Egyptian found it in 25 BC, 1000 BC.
Okay, thank you. That's very interesting. So Matteo, could you, yeah.
Well, I think we have a question from Thomas.
You can continue that.
Please, Thomas.
Okay, it's a question to the discussion we raised before to Milena. Of course, the very interesting argument that Mark put forward. I would a little bit enclose my question to this, and I found, Milena, very interesting your concept of a third space, as the midden is a third space. Also interesting as a point to access to a resource, as an ad hoc resource that you could use. And you know that question from the Dürnberg mines as well, where you have worked with the material. So my question is, of course, it's perhaps not only body purification processes, whatever, toilets, things. But there are possibly also many more things that you could do with, for instance, ceramic, scraping, doing things on leather. We have found such things in other excavations as well. Have you done a microscopical survey on, let's say, after use traces, traceology on ceramical materials so far? Because it would be interesting to see if this is the case, isn't it?
I'm obviously not the expert on the ceramics. My area were the features, actually. So
yes, but your team did possibly did it. Yeah.
Well, we have the for this paper we've looked at the taphonomic alterations, and maybe Johnny can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that there's all that much in this regard to the scraping edges. Obviously, it's been looked at and it's been assessed on a scale if the edges are rounded, but we've always attributed that more to the trampling processes, for example. So that's probably something that should be looked into as well.
Okay, so the next question, thank you, Thomas, and thank you, Milena, for your exchange. The next question is from Trifon, please.
Yes, thank you very much. This is not actually a question, it is a comment regarding the fragmentation of pottery. Well, I could not disagree with Mark that pottery is the most fragmented, mostly the most fragmented archaeological element found in the excavations. Still, I believe that the matter that we do not find actually complete vessels could be a matter of research orientation and let's say prioritizing. I would refer to my personal experience from the excavation from the Neolithic lakeside settlement from Dispilio, the prehistoric settlement in northwestern Greece. It was a big excavation. It lasted for nearly 20 years. Nearly, let's say, 2 hectares were excavated, and I would dare to say that millions of potsherds came out from this excavation. So there were three doctoral students that they opened all this material and they fit together the potsherds, and nowadays there are more than 1,500, let's say 1,500 complete vessels from this excavation. So I believe that prehistoric pottery is a matter of research orientation. We usually, as archaeologists, want to make some conclusions, fast conclusions regarding typology or chronology, and we study ceramics just like that. But if someone studies, make a project from the potsherd to the vessel and open all this material, I believe that complete vessels will come. And I have a comment regarding one more personal experience from the potential use of the potsherds for cleaning purposes. If someone visits ancient Ephesus in Asia Minor and goes to the public toilets, then look into the holes of the public toilet, someone will see thousands of potsherds used for personal cleaning. So it's absolutely clear that the potsherds at last at least during Roman times were used for personal cleaning. So I could not imagine why they couldn't be used during prehistoric or earlier times just like that. Thank you.
I agree with you on the question of complete vessels. We have this problem that we postulate those middens, and it seems like that part of the middens may have been used to stabilize surfaces, so they ended up in those archaeological layers that have obviously have been walked on. So we have a lot of ceramic shards in those layers that are very rounded and small, and obviously it's very possible that are parts of the vessels that we found in the pits, so that you could reconstruct this complete vessel, but you have very little chance to ascertain that, because those fragments are just so altered that you can't fit them to those shards that have been found in the pits. So that's a very valid point, absolutely, yes.
Okay, so next question from Raffaella.
Yes, thank you very much for the interesting talk. And I have never excavated in a settlement of Flatene period, so maybe I will ask something very naive, and it's about the function of this pit, if they are drainage pits, because I just excavated in the Arno Valley, on north of the river Arno in Tuscany. And in a settlement or a context of the Bronze Age, and we have a lot of these pits with various fragments of bones and pottery. And in our case as well, it's normally not possible to reconstruct complete vases, but these fragments are functional to this drainage function. So they have been probably collected from the surface or from another place where these wastes were deposited, and then intentionally crushed and used as a drainage element.
Okay. Well, the area obviously is pretty wet. It's close to the Rhine, and there probably has been some aspect of drainage. We suspect the ditches that they have dug through those areas, because in the thin sections and the micromorphological analysis, it was discovered that the bottommost fill of those ditches was a very fine sandy sediment that was probably washed in from the surface. So that definitely had some kind of draining aspect. At least the surface water was probably washed into those ditches. About the pits, we have different types of pits. Those in our section are, we propose that they have probably been grain storage. We don't find this type of sediment that we find in the ditches in the pits regularly. So it's pretty hard to say why they were left open for a while. Some seems to have been used as a workplace in between. At least there's been trampling. So it's possible that the pits also had this drainage function for a while, but we think it was mostly the ditches.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for the questions. I have also a comment, I mean, a kind of broader statement, if I may, because all the talks and presentation were very, very interesting. I mean, and I had the impression that they treat, to an extent, this relationship with the resources from a kind of, in seeing all together, from a kind of multi-scalar perspective, because we have hints to the use of black resin in a specific practice, but we talk also about transhumance and waste. So my comment, and I would like to grab all these actually thoughts together and ask, maybe try to involve also Constance more in depth, ask, but also to all the speakers, from this point of view, is there a way that so we can explore to an extent agency, even individual agency or group agency at a smaller level, looking at the relationship between humans and resources? It's just, I mean, a kind of methodological curiosity, but also theoretical curiosity. So I would like from Constance also, if she has something to say about that. Also about cognition, where we do situate cognition in this kind of relationship. Yes, please say something. Or Constance, or even Nadia, I mean, which has a lot of experience in making pots, maybe can be something to explore more in depth.
I think you have to explore that within the different projects. If there is something like a central dimension which we can trace, which is important for technical things, or if we can see something which goes beyond the pure functional things. But I think also for Abdelmonem, it would be a possibility to trace these things.
Yes.
But it's difficult to bring that all together. I think it's a very interesting but difficult topic. I don't know.
Yeah, about Black Reason and the resources, our relationship about countries, or what? Black Reason was, we found in when we analyzed the sample of Black Reason, we found it contained mastic oil, mastic resin, and oil, and mastic resin, when mastic resin and the pine resin and beeswax and bitumen. Bitumen was come from Dead Sea, and beeswax was found from Egypt, and mastic resin, ancient Egyptian was used mastic called Pistacia lantescas. It was found from Greece.
Yeah.
Greece. Ancient Egyptian had a trade trade all over the world, because we can find a good tree in Egypt, in ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt come export a good tree from outside, from Hatshepsut, from the New Kingdom.
The question we would like to trace is if we can understand from the way things have been used, the way pottery has been made, or resources were used, if we understand what kind of knowledge and experiences the people had. And
yes, I work on it, and I know there is pottery we can transport from outside or found in Egypt. Ancient Egyptian used Black Resin while it was war. So he can put the Black Resin in pottery or something else on fire to make it warm, to apply it in the wooden artifact. But this tool, we can find the brushes only on the British Museum covered with bitumen. But the tools, pottery or something else, we can't find now. We had in the Egyptian Museum like canopic jar, inside it cover Black Resin, but no one make sure this contain Black Resin, or ancient Egyptian use this. Black Resin, how to make it and how to ancient Egyptian applied it, and application methods in the funerary furniture doesn't studied yet. The first one in Egypt, or maybe many researchers, or 2 researchers or 3 all over the world who studied Black Resin. Black Resin application, no one studied yet. We had a paper about how ancient Egyptian applied Black Resin in funerary equipment. In New Kingdom, he had a technique. Black Resin was very gloss and thickness, and more thickness. Then later time, or in Ptolemaic era or late period, Black Resin not gloss enough, and it was a thin layer of Black Resin. In Tutankhamun collection, we can find in some of funerary furniture of Tutankhamun the bristle of brushes, or brush make marks on the body of the objects, because Black Resin not warm enough for ancient Egyptian. We make analysis to know the composition of the Black Resin, and I try to prepare a new Black Resin and to see this is the same properties which ancient Egyptian use it in application in drawings.
Sorry to interrupt you. We have another comment coming on, so because we'd like to have everybody as opportunity to speak. So can we move to another one? Thank you. Sorry, Ma. Sorry, that's very interesting. So I think the Rafael.
Yes.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, thank you, Matteo. I think you have done the question, so the big question, because looking to my case study, this problem of the scale is really huge, especially when you are looking at knowledge and practices, religious practices, for example, or community of practices in production. And the problem is I could model how do they need for a chain operatoire, what do they need for these rituals and interconnections. But when I look to my archaeological data set, then I cannot catch really this whole dimension. And normally I just can catch, if I'm lucky, the single history of people and context, if I'm looking to the assemblages within a grave or within a farmer. But if I want to generalize and extend to the world region, especially in the 7th century or 8th centuries, I think that the gap between my models and my data is still too high. So the possibility to think about it, so to model what is necessary also in base of the climatic condition of the natural resources, or it's a huge and great possibility, the possibility to prove that generally, not just in single case, I think it's quite low in my case.
Thank you for your comment also. And please, yes.
If I could just add something on the perspective of Basel Gasfabrik, what was striking to me was that it seemed that everything was a resource for those people, including the ground beneath their feet, obviously to use in pottery production, but also the Rhine gravel that was pretty deep down that they used, and not just indiscriminately, but they picked pebbles of a certain size to then spread that over a big section of the area. So everything was a resource. And then again, once those resources had lost the primary function in case of pottery or animal bones or the animal flesh that was eaten, they still reused it again, and probably a second or a third time. And even when they then deposited it in the pits, which was like a final deposit, which really took out of the settlement context, even that action seems to have been more than just getting rid of it, because they could have thrown it in the Rhine, but they filled it into those pits to fill in those pits and used it again. And as I said, they used some of it to put it on the surface to counteract this muddy surface, and it was part of this this archaeological layer that they created. So everything was a resource, and it was used and used again until it was really taken out of the settlement. And as I said, even that was a kind of at least ritualistic moment for that waste that we would probably have thrown away a long time after the ceramic broke for the very first time. So that was what I thought was striking in this relationship between the people in the settlement and their resources.
Thank you. Well, actually, this reminds me a little bit of what was talking also about Professor Lecain. I mean, because it seems to me that it's a kind of complex mechanism which acted at different scales, which basically implies the co-creation of all these scales, of all these contests, co-creation of both humans and environment in a way that man and nature, to an extent, collide, if we can say so. It was just, I mean, a kind of impression, very speculative from a theoretical perspective. And of course, there are lots of methodological issues, as also you brought forward, which hinder, to an extent, a thought of comprehension of these complex mechanisms. So, if someone wants to ask or do other questions or comments.
question somewhere on the text box.
Yeah, there is a huge one.
Yes, I can read it. It's for the Mr. There's a question for the
Nadia.
Mr. Abdullah. So the question is from the Nadia Merkel.
Yeah.
He said it would be very interesting to find out what exact effects the single components have on the process of making black resin. So why did they choose them, or how did they play with the amounts? Where are the difficulties in the process of making? Are these traceable problem? The craft, right? I could not see the last one. Yes.
Very important. About to know the exact effect of single component, haven't studied yet, but we know the component of the black resin composition. It was know the melting point of each component and the probabilities of each component. We had the mastic resin, we had antifungi and the bacteria. Bitumen. We had studied the properties of bitumen of each component separately. We found bitumen, ancient Egyptian used it to cover the mummy, and found it in the composition of black resin. It was had antifungi and antibacteria and insect repellent material. So any artifact covered with black resin had no microbial infestation on it, and the beeswax and mastic resin melting point about 50 or 60 degrees Celsius degree. This about the component of each component of black resin. Some paper was British Museum say in black resin it's vegetable oil. Ancient Egyptian you didn't use vegetable oil on black resin. I prepare it and put linseed oil as a vegetable oil. Black resin can't dry. We had coffin about 2 meter or meter and 60 centimeter high. How ancient Egyptian used to cover black resin? It uses the properties of this material, make it dry fast. While ancient Egyptian use brush to apply black resin, it dry fast. He can apply the gilded paper on black resin, or he make different methods of production or apply black resin according to the wills of the dead person. And about the choose, how did they play with the mounts? With the mount in New Black Resin was appeared in New Kingdom. New Kingdom was the highest level of use Black Resin. Like Tutankhamun, Imhotep II, the Black Resin was very closer and the thick layer. Another era after this, like late period or Ptolemaic era, ancient Egyptian used black resin, but it was not gloss like New Kingdom, and the layer was thin. And the amount of this, ancient Egyptian imported mastic resin or Pistacia lentiscus from Greece. Imported bitumen from Dead Sea. This about transportation or relationship about all over the world at the same time. But the invitation and tradition. Wait a second. The craftsperson face the problem because this material together, it was to choose it. It was very difficult to choose this material at the same thing or at the same time to melt it together to have a new material doesn't affect by insects or microbial infestation. And the brushes, black resin applied it while it was warm or hot on the fire. And the black ancient Egyptian doesn't have brushes like in modern now all over the world. He used brushes from the nature, from the palm tree. He make his brushes and put it in black resin and applied it on the funerary equipment.
Okay, thank you very much for your explanation. And I think
we have done actually.
Yes, and
we have stick to the time schedule very strictly.
May I just, because I think someone may I ask one more question, because I think I have few minutes. Is that all right for you, Matteo?
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Actually, a question specific for the Typhoon. Yes. Because I just read your poster about your these shells. You mentioned that this shell is, I just read it out loud. These shell were worn on the most visible area of human body. They are symbols of social position of their owners. I just wondering, because is that these shells wear as a afterlife decoration, or the people they wear daily? So my impression is like, for modern standard, we are thinking I won't, if I wear this clothes or I bring cell phone, I probably won't bury with me. Is that possible? This shell is buried for this kind of ritual or the ritual, ceremonial or funeral purpose rather than the daily use? These shells. Thank you. Typhoon?
About ancient Egyptian as a afterlife.
Sorry, I asked the Typhoon. So sorry, I asked the shell. Can you unmute yourself? Sorry.
Well, the presentation regarding the cell is not mine, actually. It's Todor's from Bulgaria. So.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, the poster. You mean the poster regarding?
Yes.
It's not mine.
Oh, it's yours. Okay. Okay. So sorry about that. Sorry, that's my mistake.
No problem.
So Todor is here. Todor or okay. Sorry about that. I thought you are the presenter. So the Todor is there, or thing? Mr. Todor.
Vulture, yeah.
Yeah. I think he's there, but can you speak or not? All right.
No, right. That's it.
Okay, maybe you can just
some problems, technical problems.
Yeah.
Okay, you can just watch.
Well, I think we can announce the winner of the poster session now.
Yeah.
The votes have been cast, and at the first place, the winner is Raffaella Davela with a poster about transhumance and agricultural practices in Irpinia. Well done. Thank you so much. At the second place, we have Dr. Abdel Monem. So congratulations. I will do the same like this. Then we have the poster of Dr. Turk and Muesli, which are not here. So congrats also to all of them for their contribution. And finally, we have Todor also in the competition. So I think it's all for this day. Gary, if you want to close.
I just want to go back very last, so spare with me. I have this advertisement to make. So just go back to the date. So next day, section, the final part of session will take place in January 15, and that will be also very interesting about the complex system. How do we use the modeling or interpret the complex society in the past. So we hope to see you most of you, all of them there, and to join us on the 15th of January. Thank you. So thank you for your participation and your contribution. I will see you next year. Happy Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you so much and stay safe.
Ciao.
Thank you, everybody. So I'm wearing a nice, funny hat. Just
yeah, the atmosphere. Yeah.
And thank you very much for your presentation, which were all of them very interesting.
For this year, it should fit with the mask.
Yes.
Yes, I prefer a hat instead of the mask, just because we are approaching Christmas, and I hope to see you, all of you, in January again. And yes, so thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to the chairs for the organization and discussion.
My
Thanks.
pleasure. Yeah, all pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you in January. Ciao, bye.
Bye.